Welcome to the So Far So Rare podcast. This week I spoke with Ryan, who's also Sorare Strategy. You can find him on YouTube. And we talked about a massive thing he did. He sold his entire gallery for like 16 and a half Ethereum, rebuilding from the ground up. Massive switch in strategy and a lot of lessons learned. I hope you enjoy the episode. Ryan, aka Sorare Strategy, you have a YouTube channel, and the reason I got you on was, well, initially you reached out, but the thing that was like, I have to talk to this guy was you just sold it all. You sold your whole gallery worth circa 19 ETH, and you're resetting. You're starting again. Talk to me about you first, obviously. Hello, and obviously first, and let people know a bit about yourself. But like, that's one hell of a headline. I had to lead with it.
Absolutely. It's been a headline for me, kind of bouncing in my head for the last month until I finally pulled the trigger. But yeah, great to be on here and great to meet you. I've been part of Sorare for 15 months or so. I kind of came on. I've you to thank for that. I stumbled upon one of your videos at that time, of course, right when Sorare was peaking, and so I sort of overspent massively. But and then it was kind of chasing those profits, or chasing those investments. But no, it's been such a game changer for me. I'm quick intro. I guess I'm from the West Coast, so born and raised here in Vancouver. Worked in the sports industry pretty much my whole life. Actually was at the Vancouver Canucks, but then the Vancouver Whitecaps, and so helped to rebrand them as they headed into MLS about 10 years ago. They're still not quite as successful in the field as we'd like, but that's okay. And then went down to Australia and worked in Australian football for about 5 years as well. That was an amazing experience. And then basically I've been back up to Vancouver for about 5 years.
Cool. Well, yeah, it's when I look at your gallery there, you've been on the platform since the 16th of March 21, kind of the height of the boom, really, last year. Hopefully we're due another one, hopefully. But yeah, you sold all your cards to Roadie Boss, not someone I've ever dealt with. How did that come about? Did you reach out? Did he reach out? Did you post it somewhere? How did you actually like make it happen?
Yeah, it's actually a lot easier than I thought. I started by searching manager names. You know, people put kind of sentences in their names and things like that. I started to search and go, who's using the word selling or buying galleries or something like that. Found a few people, but I thought there's got to be something easier than that. And then sure enough, if you go on Sorare's Discord channel, of the 25 different threads, one of them is buying and selling galleries. And if you go on there, you'll see it's actually pretty active for the buyers. They're posting almost every day. They're posting just a little sort of copy paste job of saying, hey, I'm buying, reach out to me. So I just posted my name and my gallery name in there. And honestly, within minutes, frankly, I was getting offers. And I'd say in the span of 24 to 48 hours, I had about 5 or 6 people interested, and I could kind of negotiate the prices sort of against them or see, who favored my gallery more than others.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I've had a few people reach out to me over time, where I'm just looking in the chat here, galleries. It's interesting to see. I've had a few reach out to me over time and offer me stuff. And I tell you what, like your gallery value can kind of spiral out of control, and you can kind of not really realize what it's actually worth very quickly. And then you get hit with a number and you're like, holy shit, that's worth X amount. And when you compare that to your real life and how that would impact your real life, it kind of takes you back and you have to think about it. Now, I have to say, I found these people, obviously they get a lot of buys, they get a lot of galleries that they buy, and you were obviously very happy with how yours transpired. I find they always use the Sorare data value, and maybe it's different in like limited and rare. I think limited galleries are maybe much more accurately valued because of the frequency of transaction. Maybe rare a little less, but still pretty accurate. Once you get to super rares and uniques, I have a lot. I actually have quite a few super rares like in my gallery, and I find like they're really poorly valued. And it's nothing on Sorare data. They have like, it's a hard thing to do, and you have to, like, whenever they start actually trying to attribute values to cards, it can seem like they're suggesting what cards are worth and like that can impact markets. Blah blah blah. They have a tightrope to walk. I get that. This isn't a reflection on them whatsoever. But when I look at like my gallery, I'm trying to find it here at roster prices. Like I've always found like there's cards that are like drastically undervalued, and it's all my super rares. Literally every single one of them are like ETHs off. You know what I mean? Because of the frequency of sale is so low. Like, I don't know if I could pick one out that like stands out. Like even like Toby Layson, super rare backup keeper under 23 behind Vandevert. 0.66 is the value that comes up. Nico Williams, 0.46. Sugawara, 0.55. Like, I could go all the way down here, and there's some of these cards that are worth 5, 6, 7, 8, 10x what they're being valued at. So the reason I go on that spiel is anytime I've been approached, the value is always way too low. And I also do have quite a lot of premium cards. So I wouldn't take a 25% hit because they would be liquid. Like a Trent, why would I take 25% of a hit on a Trent? I would just sell the Trent for 100% or 95. So I find my gallery is not conducive to selling. Was yours built in a way where you felt you could get a good value?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, and I do think that as you have more super rares, certainly uniques, you can't quite rely on that kind of market valuation. I mean, good example, it's like owning a rare car versus a Honda Civic or something like that. Like you're just not going to be
Yeah.
able to properly evaluate. And so, like I found that actually, I didn't have a ton of super rares. I maybe had 8 or something. I'm not sure, but I didn't think they were too much value. But so 2 things. One is I actually had Roddy Boss kind of sort of push back on one of them, like toward the very end. He was like, I kind of don't want to buy Chiquinho. And I think it was because of that, because I think of like probably whatever the last purchase was or the last value, it was just sort of too high for what he wanted. But what he probably felt was valued, I didn't want to sell at either. So I said, okay, fine, I'll just keep them. It's not a big deal.
Mm.
And I do think that if you were to sell your super rares, you'd almost have to take a spreadsheet and really like put in, like negotiate value for each one. Whereas to your point, rare and limited, I think you could just rely on the market. The other piece for me was the cards. When you go into selling, one of the things you don't realize is the person's going to offer, like, so you negotiate a percentage, and like I can share what that was and who offered what to some degree and whatnot. But once you get to that percentage, you have to look at the lowest current offer as well as the sort of 2-week average, and the buyer is going to take the lowest of the two. So when he first sent his first batch of like 10 cards for this amount of money, I was adding it up as what the kind of like 2-week value or 3-day value was, and it was off. And then I realized, oh, of course he's going to only pay what the current lowest price is for about 3 of the 10 or something like that. So there is a bit of math and a bit of, nobody's trying to trick anyone. You just have to kind of be careful and know what you're getting at. And so what I ended up doing, like previous to these discussions, was in that sort of maybe 1 to 2 weeks that I was really serious about this, I started putting up cards for sale that I didn't think, like, that I thought I could get, to your point, 100% value on. Because I knew I wasn't going to sell my gallery for 100% value. And so what was a good one?
I suppose some of those like higher percentage cards, you just get them flogged, get the cash in the bank because that's your plan anyway. And then with the kind of guys that you're probably going to struggle that are a bit more liquid, bulk sell them because
well, and
that's why they're getting a discount.
There's one guy that, like, literally we were talking about an offer minutes before I sort of virtually shook hands with Roddy Boss on this. And so I just pulled the trigger and I was like, okay, I'm going to take what I think it was like 0.3 or something for Selikov, the Russian keeper, because I knew I was only going to get, somewhat less than that in my entire gallery. So I quickly pulled that one just to make a little bit of extra.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can see there. I can see you also made a few buys just before the sale as well, but obviously there were a few things going through your head. So you got 19 ETH all in. Your current roster valuation is just over 4 ETH, just over 5K. Are you cashing any of that out, taking anything out, or are you just rebuilding?
Yeah, so I should check that slightly. So I think I got somewhere around 16.5 ETH, because a few things. So one is my roster value is about 19. You don't get 100% for that. So we landed on a number of about 87%. And so that probably equates to somewhere around 16.5 or so. But on top of that, we picked about 4 or 5 cards that I could hang on to. So the funny thing is that I negotiated based on percentage. I wasn't going to like talk about 16 ETH, 17 ETH, whatever. I wanted to get to a percentage. And so I had other people offering 82%, 85, things like that. And then when I got to the number that I wanted, I felt 87 was accurate and fair. I then said, okay, but I want to keep these 8 cards. And he said, which 8 do you want? And of course, I picked some pretty nice ones. And he said, well, okay, come on, I can't offer 87% if you're taking like your 8 best cards kind of thing,
Yeah.
which I realized and I got. And there was a realization that like, if I really wanted those people, I could just go back and buy them back. Like there's value in bundling this and just shipping it off. So we instead landed on about, I think it was 3 or 4 cards that I hung on to. And some of them were just like sentimental. So like, the JPEG or whatever that you use for this showed Arjen Robben. And I mean, obviously he's completely unplayable. He's retired. But I just kind of want to hold on to it the way you would hold a card, like a sports card or a sticker, a Panini sticker, something like that. Like, I just think this is pretty cool. I'm one of, I think it's 60 or 70 of these cards out there. And I just want to hold that one forever as a collectability. So he was fine with that. It's not like it's worth much anyways. I had a Dervisoglu SuperRare, and he's and it's card number 1 as well. So arguably it's the sort of second most valuable card he would have. And I think he's great. I think he does really well for Turkey when he plays for the national team. He's sort of been on the bench for Galatasaray, but I think he's got a bright future. And to your point, I couldn't find a value that made sense. Like there was just no way I could sell at that. And then the third one was Ryan Raposo for the Whitecaps here. And he's a young guy, and he's, again, card 1, super rare. And that was just sentimental. It's like, I want to own sort of a really top tier card of a local and kind of follow his career path. So, we landed on those, and I think those were pretty like reasonable. But when I was like, I want to hang on to, Kochu and Militao and all these people, he was like, okay, come on, I can't.
Get out of here. Yeah. So you got your 16 whatever ETH. I've seen you've spent a bit since. Are you spending it all? Did you cash out?
So I didn't cash out. I mean, obviously the fiat level right now. So the fiat level would show that I've basically made a loss over the last 15 months or so, or kind of maybe just broke even. Whereas the ETH, it's easily the most ETH I've ever had. I think I went in, when I bought in, I had about 7 or 8 ETH worth. I think maybe it was 9 or 10. I don't know. But so in some ways, I'm maybe making a bit of a gamble on ETH rising. So it didn't feel like the right time. If I was worried about cashing out, this wasn't the time to do so. I'm definitely like a long-term ETH believer. Having said that, I don't want to be, one of the big mistakes I made early on was I got into this and I spent all my money in 3 weeks. Pretty much. I just went from 0 cards to about 80 cards. And I really wish I had taken some time. I wish I had taken about 2 or 3 months to like make my purchases. And I really missed some really great opportunities last summer in particular, because I just had no ETH whatsoever. And I was like, trying to sell cards to create some kind of cash flow. And so now I'm trying to be a little diligent. I definitely want to get into Europe. That's the place that I get most sort of excited and want to follow, especially Challenger Europe. It's really opened my
it's good fun.
Yeah, totally. And just like follow new teams and new leagues. But I want to wait. It feels like those leagues are sort of at their peak, or will continue to be at their peak through the summer. And so I could see myself waiting even till like September, October to make most of my purchases.
No, I like that. And what's your kind of like initial thought? Like, I think if I went back, let's say I got my gallery sold and I was going back, and maybe it is depending on gallery value and stuff, but I always kind of thought it'd be nice to aim high and trickle down. But when I look at your gallery, you have picked up a few limiteds. Is there a process? You have some super rares as well? So like, are you trying to build out all scarcities or what? Because I always think I'd like to go like buy a really premium team that can compete in super rares, win me rares. That's what I think I'd do. Or even like uniques. Just go fucking balls to the wall. What was your thinking and what is your plan?
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at my gallery now, it actually probably mirrors my previous gallery in terms of it looks a bit scattered and things like that. So I'm sort of slowly constructing what my strategy is. But what I can say is that I'm actually going to stay at a limited to some degree. The only limited league that I find I enjoy and don't feel constantly frustrated or just throw a lot of wasted money at is the
Mm.
special weekly, or the one where you can win the rares if you get up into the podiums. So that's the one where you need 2 cards under 40 and you need 1
Yeah.
over 60 and then the 2 and the 50, right? So what you're seeing in terms of my limiteds is a couple guys for this weekend that are under 40, and then I'm debating who I might grab to kind of fill out the rest of my roster there. So that's probably the only limited league I'm going to play, because to your point, the opportunity to win rares, I think is great enticement. And I kind of like, there is a part of me that likes that sort of week to week, trying to find the nice matchups, trying to find the guy that has a
Mm.
low L15 and stuff. I know that like scratches an itch for me. So if I just limit it to one game or one tournament, I won't overspend and start trying to fill every every limited league.
No, I hear you. When I look at this, I think like from a content standpoint, when I'm going to do a bit more on my YouTube channel. So anyone who doesn't subscribe, go over and subscribe. I've just hit 8,000 subscribers, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And you have a YouTube as well. So Rare Strategy, we should go and check you out too.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this kind of like these new game modes are very exciting. I'm kind of pivoting away now from the gallery sale, but I'm sure we'll touch back on it. We'll get back involved because there's lots more to that story, I'd say. But these new game modes are really exciting, and I think they're really good content because it's week to week. And I think a lot of fantasy players and DFS players like to think week to week and fixture based and targeting guys. And I entered the SuperRare Weekly for the first time, the SuperRare Kickoff, sorry, for the first time this week, and I was amazed at how like low the bar was. So I have a thing where I'm giving away every limited card I win on my YouTube this season, or at least this year is what I kind of said. That's when the contract runs out. I'll reassess at the end of 2022. But I threw in my Thiago Santana super rare. Now he was captain and he did score 70 points. So it was 103 points straight off the bat, right? But outside that, I had a 29 pointer, a 41 pointer, a DMP, and then a clean sheet from the goalie. 241 points. I didn't think that was an amazing score. They had to have L5 averages or L15s less than 50. So, I mean, you can still get decent guys in there. 92% complete rankings, and I'm sitting in 53rd on a tier 2 limited. Now, I don't think I'm going to hold on. But my point is, even with a DMP, a 29 pointer, and a 41 pointer, like I'm 43 points off a star with 91% done. And I think the fact that the super rare is a huge barrier to entry, the entrants are so much lower. And the fact that I have the super rares to maybe enable that division for my community lineups or limiteds, I think like for galleries like me, that kickoff is actually way better than you'd think because it incentivizes both people to go and buy super rares, but it also incentivizes people who have super rares to go and buy limiteds. Even if like you're a whale and you don't really dabble in limiteds, now I'm thinking like I could do with having a few more limiteds to go around these super rares because like you can win star limiteds in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and they can be worth thousands. So, like, I don't know. I just think these new game modes are class. So it's interesting that you're targeting them, and I think there's a very interesting type of player you can find. As I've been doing sort of deep dives into leagues at the minute, fullbacks can stand out quite often, or different players who hit high peaks but also give away a lot of possession stuff and will hit 25, 42, 25, 28, 19, and then all of a sudden they bang 100. For underdog purposes, that's what you need. You need the peak. So
Yeah.
I don't know. What have you done much digging into that yourself or not?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in fact, I felt there was a bit of a gap in content out there, and sort of where I was steering my channel over the winter was around looking not necessarily at this next game week, but rather maybe like 4 to 6 game weeks ahead, and just being like slightly ahead of the market, and especially with the liquidity of the limited category that you could, whether you're doing it to flip cards or whether you're just doing it to like build nice little tournament teams. A good example is, say, this Nations League that just wrapped up. I mean, a lot of people kind of wrote it off, and sure, that's fine, but like there was reasonable cards to be won. There was a lot of people just didn't have lineups that could compete. And if you had planned for that back in May or April or something like that, you'd have a nice lineup. A lot of people are writing off kind of the World Cup as sort of a dead period as well for Sorare, and it's like, well, if you can use limited as a way to enjoy, well, I mean, you're going to enjoy the World Cup anyway, so why not also have some pretty good lineups put against it as well? And especially, like, I saw this last year with the Euro and stuff, like some of the players for Macedonia and these other countries and stuff, especially in the first 2 weeks or whatever, the first couple matches, you can definitely compete with those that have Messi and Mbappe and everyone like that. So those I think are really interesting opportunities, because I think all of us would agree in these sort of lower periods when there's not a lot of games going on, like it feels like something's missing, like something taken from your soul a little bit, where you're just waiting for the start. So like lean into that. Don't just sit here and wait, until Premier League starts or whatever. Like actually like throw yourself into some other leagues via the limited phase.
Yeah. It is. I know what you mean. There's like I'm starting to get excited now when I look at my players. There's guys who you kind of forget you've got, and looking ahead and getting excited about the seasons coming back. And I mean, we're not far away from some of them. Like Austria is back very soon, I believe, and
This weekend.
I think like next weekend, is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
Jupiler.
like football is back. Yeah, like football is back very soon. So it's starting to get exciting. FPL launched. I'll probably stick out a tournament for that. I'm running the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel. So if anyone's into FPL, go and subscribe to Fantasy Football Hub on YouTube. You'd help me big time. Get in among the comments. Big task for me. That's what's kind of allowed me to go to half hours at work and lean a bit more into content. But don't worry, still all the Sorare content coming. But as you say, it's a bit of a dead period. I'm excited about stuff coming back. But when I'm looking at, you just mentioned the World Cup. Like, there's no reason for the World Cup. Like, I'm trying to think of a slightly more niche team. But like, if you built it's always the keeper, isn't it? But like, if you built, say, like a Swiss stack, is he Swiss or is he Austrian? I always get mixed up. But let's say you built, like a Swiss stack. I mean, they're going to play against Cameroon and Serbia. I'm not saying either of those are particularly easy games, but there's a chance they could score well.
Yeah.
A Croatian stack will play against Canada and Morocco. You won't like me saying I think they'll beat Canada, but like there are good sort of national team stacks that will have an easy fixture or two there, and there'll probably be some sort of promo and nice prizes. It is a while away.
And also, like, that brings up another piece, and just the collectability, which we kind of never talk about. But I mean, Canada's going to make the World Cup for the first time since 1986, and only the second time in their history. And we have quite a bumper crop of talent. Obviously Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David and Tejan Buchanan, and I could go on and on. But so for me, for example, is like part of me, I want to take some of my budget and like build a little World Cup Canada limited side, just so that I get to like field that side in Sorare, watch them play, cheer them on. And, I'm not expecting to win huge rewards or anything, but it just might feel good to sort of have that. I've even thought, do I go as far as to try and buy card 22, because it's 2022, of those players? And then I just own that forever. And I own, the card number 22 of these players that made it to the World Cup. And so that kind of stuff, we got to remind ourselves that like makes it also a little bit more rich. It's not just about your economic return.
Exactly. And it's something I speculated on maybe a month ago on the podcast about with the incoming of MLB. We don't know how that's going to affect the market in terms of who it's going to bring into Sorare. The mentality of, yourself, you live in North America, you're Canadian, but I think Canada is very similar to the US in terms of like the collectability of sports cards.
Right.
And I don't know if do you have baseball in Canada? I'm sure you have it, but is it anywhere near as competitive, or like, is it a thing?
We have the Toronto Blue Jays. So they are in Major League Baseball. So,
Cool.
But no, it's not as big of a sport. That's for sure.
But the point is that I suppose I'm thinking it brings in a different mentality where people are coming in to play the fantasy, I'm sure, and maybe the diehard baseball fans and whatever mightn't be into crypto or NFTs, but I think like you will get some of the sports card fans coming in the door. I think when that happens, then everyone's going to get World Cup fever. So I kind of speculated a month ago or so that I could see the American cards on Sorare, the American youngsters, the World Cup squad, getting a nice bump around then. Because when we seen it when the boom happened last year when you joined, a lot of that sort of crop of people were US based because it was kind of all based off the back of Gary V and whatever else. A lot of them were kind of naive maybe to football, but into NFTs, and Gary V said it and let's go. And like the likes of Cole Bassett, for example, I remember he went nuclear, and so did like the Brendan Aronsons and Alfonso Davies, and the North American players really spiked. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to act on this probably, but like I really do think that's a play.
Well, yeah, and that's, I mean, that was my initial strategy because it came from the sports card collecting kind of mentality. And in fact, I purposely was buying and trading for cards that were like a few years back. I wasn't trying to get the in-season cards and the 5% bonus because I considered uh, playing in the SO5s as like a little bit like DFS. I don't know if you have that over there, but like say with the NFL daily fantasy, it's kind of a lottery in a way. And if anything, you have to go like counterintuitive. Like you have to pick the random guy that, I mean, in this sense, like gets 100 in order to win anything. So I felt like it was more based on luck. And thus for me, it was the long-term collectability. So I would actually specifically target a 2019 or a 2018 card. And because it was, to me, it was like a real card. It was like, I'm owning the first, NFT of this guy, or the first year of the NFT of this player. And so my entire, and this is part of also why I sold, was that I realized that I'd put in, whatever it was, 10 ETH or something worth of a significant amount of money into this. And my tournament win rate was like 2% or so by about November or so. And I thought something's wrong here. Like I surely putting this much money in, I should be winning a little more than this. And it was because I'd invested obviously a ton in like U23s that I thought would come good over time. But then also just not really looking at the actual performance week to week. And so I started to change that in January, February. And then I got my win rate up to more like 5% or so. And that started to feel a lot better. I started to actually like enjoy that feeling, obvious, of winning a card and opening a card. And then I was like starting to look at other comparable managers and going, well, that guy's winning 15%, 20%. Like, what am I doing wrong here? So
it's so funny when percentages they come up every so often. I don't even give a shit because I put in random teams for the sake of putting them in. So like
yeah,
in terms of like teams I put in that I think can win versus teams that I just put in, I don't know what that number is.
right.
So like the 14% win rate is skewed.
It is.
So I don't know. It'd be nice if you, well, no, because then everyone would just have 100. I was going to say if you could like mark what you feel is a competitive lineup for yourself, but then people would just mark nothing other than winners as competitive lineups to up their stats. But you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I'd love to see my win rate in like under 23 Rare Pro because I always go hard there.
Yeah. You might know anecdotally, like if you had to ask
Mhm.
yourself how often, you could probably like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I felt like I
Probably
was
still
getting up.
too low.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt like I was like February, March, April, I was starting to win at a rate where I could kind of expect that I could win. And sometimes it was only a tier 3, but I at least was like in the game. And that's when I started to really switch on to, okay, what would this feel like if I actually constructed a team that I expected to win, every single week or most weeks.
I'm having a quick look here and seeing if there's anything in the announcements. There's nothing really that's happened. San Lorenzo, the next of the big 5 clubs of Argentinian football, has landed. That happened. I don't know if you're into Argentinian football, but there's some teams there. Is it up your street?
One of the things I've learned, excuse me, is I don't. I'm not the best scout. Like I don't have the time to really dig deeply. And I mean, thankfully we have all those accounts, those SoRare Mexico and SoRare Belgium and all these Twitter accounts that really, I mean, I think they're worth whether you pay for their Patreon or just follow them on Twitter. I think it's super helpful. I definitely, as you'll see, some of the cards that I've slowly started to buy into have been mostly MLS because and a little bit of League Mexico, because I just feel I can get more information there. And if I get more information from them, then I can at least have a little more assurance. I think where I started to get wrong is when I just feel like I'm speculating, and I really don't. I mean, we've all done this. Like you literally hear, like you read like 3 tweets, you do like a Google name search where you translate some random article, and now all of a sudden you're an expert on that player. You've gone from zero, never heard of him, and in like 7 minutes you're now like a complete expert on that player, and you've convinced
I'm gonna
yourself.
spend $3,000 on this guy.
Yeah.
Like, it comes up too often, but Wesley, I knew off the top of my head he was a guy who did all right and went to Villa. Wasn't it Villa or was it West Ham? It was Villa, and failed. And like when I seen him linked with Bruges, my brain got ticking, and it was like, this is a Premier League striker who's going to Belgium. It's Bruges. They need a forward. He's going to smash. This is a super rare. I need a forward super rare. This guy fits the bill. He's challenger. I had Tadic and Vanaken at the time. He'll stack with Vanaken. He is going to absolutely slay. It's a 1819 or 1920 card. I think this is great. And then at the time, like the Van Dijk was worth like an ETH, and I was like, an ETH for a card like that? Ooh. I said, yeah, let's do it. I don't need the Van Dijk. I've loads of champion defenders. I don't need the Van Dijk. Went and did it. In the space of about 4 minutes, I FOMO'd in to spunking away one of the best defenders on the platform for a super rare Wesley because I convinced myself of some bollock speculation. And now you can't even get a game in Brazil. Like, fuck me, man.
Well, that, I must say, like,
sorry, I was just going to say, with a balance like you're in like danger zone.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I mean, just as a quick aside, like I think that's what makes some of your content and like your podcast so great, is because you really do represent so many of us in terms of that. That kind of, well, it's almost like we can see the ego on your shoulder, or the angel or whatever, that's sort of whispering in your ear and saying like, oh yeah. And because you are very positive, like you're sort of a bright side kind of guy, and yeah, we've all lived that, and that's what makes it so fun. But yeah, I mean, I had the I mean, if you look at my gallery, there's the keeper for Juarez in the Mexican league. I forget his name now, but I bought his super rare.
Got a few of him.
Yeah, and then I bought 3 of his limiteds. Now I do believe that he's going to spike. I think it was a pretty smart purchase, and ultimately I think his super rare was pretty good value. He's a strong keeper. There's talk that maybe Juarez, they were bottom of the league last year. They sort of invested this year, so they might be a bit better. So like I feel pretty good about it, but don't get me wrong, I self-taught myself about him in the span of about 25 minutes and then made that purchase. So it can be very, one of the things I realized is like when you have this much ETH, not that I have tons, but whatever I have, like now I have 13 or something left in the account, it's like it's very enticing. And you mentioned a few weeks ago about boredom buys and things like that. I mean, you can be definitely susceptible to that, because ultimately this is not me cashing out. Like I want to reinvest this. I want to take all my learnings from the first year, all my mistakes, wipe the slate clean, and actually buy tournament winning teams. It is not to cash out in any way. In fact, I sort of look at it that like the longer I have Ethereum sitting in the account, the more that I'm a crypto investor instead of a Sorare investor. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm basically now riding the wave of crypto, which I never want to do. I'm in no way an expert on that. So I kind of want to sink the money into cards, something that I believe I have at least some knowledge in. And but at the same time, that could make me, burn it all in the next 6 days. So, I have to be patient.
Yeah, just be so careful, man. Like I had it recently where I had like the 9 ETH from I had a Rodrigo sale and had a couple of ETH there, and I was sitting on 9 ETH, and I felt like I need to spend this. I'm exposed to ETH. ETH was crashing. I'm glad I spent it in hindsight, but like having that sort of balance, it was just like from going from like over the last day, I might have clicked into my Sorare account once to accept a giveaway that I gave away in a stream yesterday. Outside that, I haven't signed in because like I set my teams in the stream. Nothing's changed. I'll check back in on Thursday for any new news late on Thursday probably. And then like other than that, I don't have anything to do. I'm kind of waiting for the new season. I don't have a balance. I'm just kind of even like the teams I said at the minute, none of them are so competitive that I'm compelled to be checking them every 2 minutes. I think most of them are around for the midweek anyway. So it's like,
right.
I'm happy to kind of sit back and not be on it. But whenever I had like a balance, every 40 minutes, every 2 hours, the phone was out scrolling through the SuperRare unique market, newly listed under 23s, who's selling what's going on here, sending speculative messages. Oh, I'm interested in this guy, knowing they're never going to trade him, listing some other cards of mine to try and get them sold. And it's so hard because your eyes on the market so much more, and because your head's in Twitter and Discord and whatever else, you're much more likely to just catch a little rumor that you can just degen into.
Yeah.
So having the discipline, I think step 1 you've completed. Step 2, you sound strong, but remaining disciplined in the reason you sold in the first place.
Well, there's a
Good
couple
luck.
things. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things that I think are, I believe, on the horizon. So one thing is, I mean, we could talk briefly about Ethereum and just that. I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen, but it's going to swing in some way, one shape or another, and so to at least sort of be, I don't know, observant of that, I think is part of it. Then the second piece is the European leagues returning and things like that. I think we've generally seen that in that month leading up to a league, prices tend to spike, and even that first month or so. So then they start to kind of flatten a little bit, and sometimes you get a secondary spike kind of mid-season. So that can also provide a little opportunity. The other one is like, we don't know when the new season of cards come out as well, and so once those hit the auction, you're going to see a flattening of the market as well, because people, and someone like me sitting on some ETH, I can then just win auctions, which should give me a 10 or 20% discount than the secondary market. And then the third one or fourth one, or wherever we're at, which I know you love to talk about, is the potential Premier League, and if it got announced, I definitely want ETH in my wallet ready to spend. I don't want to be sitting there panicking like I did last summer, trying to sell cards to create cash flow.
Would you FOMO into the Premier League like that? Would you be like, I want to buy these cards? Because I think for me, I look at it almost more like I want to win these cards with the cards I've already got. But that's where I'm at. But like, do you not think you'd rather get the cards before the Premier League's launched? Because everyone will want to buy cards to win Premier League cards. Or
No,
what's your
thinking? I think it's incredibly dangerous, and I think I would go deep. I would throw everything at it. But to your point, I mean, the challenge as well with that is that to win cards, you then need to be playing Champion Europe, and those cards are expensive as well. So even if you think you're going to kind of like get into the Premier League sort of back door, you're still buying Bundesliga or La Liga or something.
You're right, like Kimmich's and whatever else. I'm kind of happy Lewandowski's up in the air. I'm happy that he's kind of been taken out of the running as like the guy.
Right.
But I mean, there's still going to be guys though, isn't there? I'm just kind of happy to have a bit of disarray at Bayern. I do have a Sané I'm a bit annoyed about. Kind of bought him at peak. Quinny will tell you otherwise, but he preyed on my my good side, and I gave him a great price. It was all Quinny, he's a bad man. But I think like, yeah, it's nice to see that broken up a bit from maybe a Champ Europe kind of Bayern stack perspective. Similarly with like Ajax, whenever key players leave, like the Sandro, isn't it, Martinez? If he goes, I'd love to kind of see like a Timber go or something. But like if he's off to Man United or Arsenal, kind of breaks that up a wee bit and throws a little bit of uncertainty in.
Yeah,
I kind of like that. Whenever you don't have the cards, I love it.
Yeah, Ajax is a really tricky one to invest in right now. I think it'd be foolish. I think you just have to kind of wait it out and see what kind of squad they have.
And even new manager, new system. How's that all going to work?
Yeah. One of the areas that I'm curious about, I haven't seen it yet, is the 24-year-old, or 23s even, like basically those that fell out of U23 last week. Are we going to see like a dip? Like maybe the SoRare data guys could look into that. Like, are we going to see a dip in price for those guys? And that might be tremendous value. You pick a 24-year-old up, you probably have 5 years, 6 years of his prime, that you might get a discount just because people aren't, they're thinking, oh, he's done with U23.
When I look at the one who always stands out to me at the minute, and I could be wrong, but I mean long term I could be wrong. God knows what happens. But like Buscagli was injured with a major enough injury, and he aged out. And like if you look at his price graph, we'll look at it in terms of fate. Like on February the 4th, I think it was, he sold for 479 quid at Limited. And yesterday, okay, he actually came up a wee bit, but he was down as low as like, I think his lowest sale was like 78 quid. He's sitting around 100 now. And then at Rare, like equally, you're looking 6 months ago up at 1,800 quid, something like that. And he's selling today for like 500. And I think like, obviously injuries can affect players, God knows. I mean, maybe there's reasons why the markets went like that, blah, blah, blah. But I think the injury and the age have to be a huge factor there. But when you go and look at his scores, if he comes back and just plays similarly to before, he's like he's a top midfielder. And if you compare him maybe to like, actually, I'd be interested to know what like a Cote is, Sebastian Cote is at Sporting, who's like a top defender, maybe
Right.
better, but like if you go and compare his limiteds actually aren't far off. Rares are a bit pricier. What about like a Daily Blind, something like that? Yeah, he's like way more expensive. You could argue he's better, but like I don't know. I feel like my point's kind of there. There definitely are opportunities. I think in particularly injured under 23s or injured guys who age out. If you hit both of them, like is Chiesa another one? Does he age out? I don't know what his price is doing. And I know they've just signed Di Maria, but he's not under 23 anymore and he's injured. Like that's like wham bam. What's his price doing?
Well,
Like
Militao as
limited.
well with Madrid. Like I had him and he aged out last week. So yeah, center back for Madrid.
Chiesa's been pretty stagnant actually, as it turns out, over the last 6 months in terms of fate at all price points. He's kind of just not moving. But Militao's another one, as you say. There's options. There's a wee strategy for people to go digging on. I want to ask you about something. You made an absolute howler of a mistake. Tell me about it.
This was last year, and I still shudder to think of it. I was in discussion with acquiring Neymar for a Neymar rare for 3 ETH. And I had kind of spent my budget and I was scraping money together, trying to check my bank balance and credit cards and things like that. And I didn't want to lose the sale. So I agreed to send the person 1 ETH for Brendan Aronson, who at the time was worth maybe 0.2, 0.25, something like that. And I thought, okay, I'm holding him for about a week, 10 days. I'll clear up some money and I'll get the extra 2 ETH to make this purchase. And the guy just took it and ran. He left the platform, he left Discord, could never find him again, and I just had a painful lesson.
That's a horrible one. I'm actually looking there on the if anyone goes to the all-time graph of Brendan Aronson, you stick out like a sore thumb. It's actually heartbreaking stuff.
I should take a screenshot of it and NFT that and sell it.
Yeah, well, that's a painful one. So I suppose everyone can learn from that. Like, just don't trust randomers on the internet. Well, maybe like, you can build relationships with people. Like, there's people I definitely trust, you know,
yeah,
because I've spoke to them and because I've known them for a long time in the community. But like, if it's just a Discord guy, like, yeah, Emily in the comments, groundbreaking advice. Don't trust people on the internet. But like, there are people who like. It's mad how much you can trust people within Sorare times. Like I've sent people cards worth thousands as a loan.
Yeah.
Imagine walking up, like, yeah.
I know. Would you even ask your friend, like your best friend for 20 years, like for $2,000 right now? Like, of course you wouldn't.
Yeah. Here, can you give me your car? I'll give you 500 quid for it, and then like I'll give you the rest later. I don't know. Like, there's no way that's. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, if you try and break that down into real terms, what was it? You wanted a car, and you said, "Hold the car for me. I'll give you $3,000, and here, give me that coffee machine."
Yeah.
That Nespresso coffee machine that's worth 100 quid as like collateral. And then they just said, well, he's just gave me $3,000 for an espresso coffee machine. Is this a poor analogy? It probably is. But anyway, that's a howler. And how did you get over that? Because that must have shook you a bit. Did you tell anyone in your real life? Did that affect you bad? Or did you just kind of move on? Because that sounds rough. I'd say that would hit some people hard. Like,
you can be sure I didn't tell my wife.
Yeah. Hope she's not listening.
No, I mean, exactly. It was pretty embarrassing. And I mean, basically for months and months, I just kept checking his value to see when I could flip it at a point that I could sort of live with. And at one point, I think he was selling for maybe 0.6, 0.7. And that was kind of a point where I was like, oh, should I just do it now, take a 0.3 loss and whatever. But yeah, it hurt. And in a lot of ways, I mean, there were so many mistakes like I made. I mean, they're just dumb things that you do, even in auction, where you get caught up in the auction and you find out you just bought the card for more than what the lowest listed price on the secondary market is, you know, and you just go, oh, it might just only be by a few dollars or whatever, but still, there's a lot of this kind of thing. And I do think that part of selling my gallery, there was like a catharsis there. There was a feeling of like, okay, now I don't have to look at that Brendan Aronson card again. Now I don't have to look at, some of these other ones that I don't have no idea why. I would spend every day on SoRare Gallery looking at my gallery and, the different numbers of like what you paid and what the lowest price is. And as soon as that lowest price got above what I paid, I would go and try and sell them. And I just thought, this is like, I'm just operating from a place of weakness. Like I'm just trying to get rid of all of these painful cards. And instead I could just do it all in one fell swoop and then rebuild from a position of strength.
Yeah. No, I like it. And I think 87% was the number you mentioned. Like I think 87% is a very fair thing. Like if someone actually came to me and offered me, I mean, based off fair valuations, like actual valuations, 87, 90% in and around that mark, 10% to cut the shade of trying to sell all your cards in the gallery, like 10%. Jesus, you'd have to seriously think about it, because it's not easy selling cards and the back and forth and the bullshit offer, time wasters. Probably me. I definitely waste time sometimes, but like,
well, people offer you 10% less anyways, just when you put it in market. Like nobody really buys like right at your price. So
unless
I kind of factored that in. Yeah, true. So I sort of looked at that. I was like, well, I tend to give people a 10% discount if they make an offer anyways. So really I'm only losing like sort of maybe 3 to 5% or something. So
yeah, no, I like it.
And the other piece for me was like, because this is, I don't, let's the big disclaimer: this is not an investment platform or investment advice or anything like that. But for me personally, this is an investment. This is something that I want to grow and I want to use, and I'm looking at it from a financial perspective. In fact, I cashed out to get into SoRare. I cashed out of a very stable mutual fund that I was so sick of looking at and gaining 4% a year on, but having no idea who these companies were and didn't care and anything. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm going to throw something into something that I actually believe in, and it gets super excited about. Anyways, that's an aside. But the point is that part of selling as well is like kind of maturing as an investor, in that like not being so attached, like to get rid of all those cards. And even like I had Chavi Simons. That's actually a good story to talk about, because he literally got transferred like 2 hours or an hour after, right? But like to like part with that is actually a good muscle to develop, like so that you don't become so attached to these things. And so now I actually feel like, wow, going forward, I will be better at getting rid of cards and selling at their peak, instead of having that like emotional attachment.
That is really important, because it's the thing we're all the worst at. Everyone says it. What are you worst at? Selling. No one to sell. Letting go. Like if someone came in and offered me like a really fair value, like more than fair value for like a Parejo card, I'm like, fuck. Like, to even take Parejo out of the equation, to see getting rid of like the Liao that I had such success with last season. Not even that I won a lot with him, but like just like I'm part of that. I have a really nice card of a proper elite talent in world football now.
Right.
Saying goodbye to that's really tough. Nico Williams, I'm like, man, I had you through thick and thin on your loan. I love having you. I followed your story. It's the emotional connection, as you say, of following these players for 6 months, a year, 2 years on their journey. You know how they're doing. You know the clubs they've been at. You know the struggles they've had. And like giving up exposure to that is kind of hard, because you kind of still want to sit down and want to watch a Genk game. If you have Genk players that you follow, you don't want to like get rid of them and have no exposure, and then like, oh, but I want to watch Genk, but I don't really care now. So like, it's really hard, I think, with SoRare, because it is so emotional for such a, as you say, it's not investing, whatever, blah blah blah. But for so many people, for such a money driven platform or a money driven adventure, like it's so hard to just be heartless and say goodbye when it's time to say goodbye, and look at it purely as like transactional and Excel spreadsheets and profits and losses. It is very hard, I think.
Well, I think
Um,
one thing to keep in mind though, and this maybe got me over the hump because I was thinking about it for about a month, and then is the realization is that what you just said, the story's not over. Like it's not like just because you sell Nico Williams doesn't mean you can never own Nico Williams again. You could just go and
mm,
rebuy. Maybe in 6 months his price drops because he gets injured or something like that. Maybe you win it. Like that was a big one for me. I was thinking that if I have more card winning lineups, I could just win back some of these cards that I've sold. I could
mm,
rebuild a U23 team purely on winnings versus just like sitting on these guys and like pouring in my emotional equity into them. And so that kind of
mm.
changed for me. It was that like, right, I can actually use card winning as a strategy to grow my gallery rather than this massive outflow of cash that I put out 15 months ago. And now I'm just like sitting on these guys on and on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I think it's time. If you're ready, we could go and have a look at some questions.
Mm-hmm.
First off, I think what I want to do is have a quick look at some transfers that have went through, see if you've any thoughts on them. So we have Di Maria's went to Juve. Obviously, PSG, he's out of there. He was never really first choice once Messi, Mbappe, and Neymar were there. Off to Juve, could do well there. Bit of competition for the wing spots. So Di Maria, not one to sleep on if you go and look at his historic Sorare scores. With Origi, who's been long kind of known he was going to Milan, but he's officially at Milan. You know, a budget guy who was never really in the team at Liverpool. When I say budget on Sorare, he would have been relatively cheap. Now he's off to Milan. You know, Giroud's Latin there, an aging cast, a different type of player, you could say. He's always been very clinical for Liverpool. He could be a great signing. With Sven Botman, who snubbed Milan and went to Newcastle, which is becoming a bit of a trend. Newcastle, I wonder why people are going there. And then Minamino, another Liverpool reject. These are all tying in nicely. Has went to Monaco, where people are hoping to get a bit more game time and maybe fulfill that potential that we've seen in him. I believe he was at Salzburg, wasn't he? So there's kind of a few transfers that jumped out at me this week, just from a Sorare perspective, that could be quite exciting. Don't know, are you expecting much from any of them, or do you care about any of them?
I really like. I mean, so I'm a mad Liverpool supporter, so definitely following Origi and Minamino, and I mean, curious even just around Liverpool's depth now going forward. But that's a different conversation. But
Mm.
Minamino, I think I'd be really excited about. Where did he go last year on loan?
Southampton.
That's right, and just lit it up for those first few games, and yeah, I think that when he's been given the time, obviously he did really well for Liverpool in the FA Cup run and the League Cup run, and so yeah, that's one that I'd be pretty bullish on. Origi is kind of a weird one for me because I maybe it's like I'm a victim of his legend. You know, it's like everything he's ever done has been in the span of like 17 minutes a game or
Mm.
6 minutes or whatever. Like what can you even remember like a 90-minute
I
performance? Like
know.
it's
He is the of like super sub, isn't he?
yeah. So I'd just be curious about that. I mean, of course, I wish him well. Just what a legend. But those ones stand out to me. I mean, Di Maria. I mean, I think what's great is he's going to a veteran side. I think he has been a little bit undervalued or kind of underloved a little bit. So
Mm.
could be a good one. But sometimes those sort of wider players maybe don't always score quite as well as we'd like.
Mm. I
And
think something that I've just noticed there, I went to look up Takumi Minamino there when he was at Southampton, and
mm,
well, the first thing that jumps out is his price. It's obviously very inflated for the type of player he's going to be because of the scarcity of card. But the other thing that really jumps out at me, well, he's very good nationally at Japan. I did not know he was 27. I said, I wonder, can he go there to realize his potential? He's 27. I had in my head he went to Liverpool when he was 19, 20 years old, stayed there for 2 or 3 years, and he was 23, 24. He's 27.
that's right.
Wow.
So he
Did
is
not
what
know
he is.
that. Yeah. I always looked at him as like a younger player. Just
Hmm.
wrong. Point blank wrong. But we'll move into a few questions. Lots submitted. We'll see if there's any. The most liked one first is from Rob Marshall. How much did your strategy change after the rebuild, or did you buy similar players the second time round? We kind of covered this. Um, but if I had to say to you, like, what's the main focal point? What was the one thing you wanted to do different? If there's one
Yeah.
thing,
I mean,
I think you
really,
kind of said it. Maybe was a bit
it's
more
less
patience. And,
cards. It's less cards, less scatter. It's more focusing on one league. So if you look at my gallery now, I mean, I think what's kind of interesting, and this will be some of my content on my channel and Twitter and whatnot, is like how I do the rebuild and what I'm thinking and whatnot. And I only have a handful of cards I bought in the last few days, but I'm looking at America Rare Pro is where I'd like to play, and obviously Global All-Star and Global All-Star Rare Pro as well. But I really kind of want to focus on that first and use that to potentially build out a little more depth in those areas. And then come the fall, maybe early fall, again, depends on my discipline, then start to move into places like Challenger and maybe U23. But it's so tricky. Like U23 is so much more expensive, and it's obviously by its nature so speculative, and that's precisely what I'm trying to go against this with this strategy. And so even though there's a part of me that wants to grab those wonder kids and whatnot, I kind of know that's what got me into having a
into
massive
trouble.
yeah. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe if I'm just really flying high and I've got these amazing Challenger stacks and America stacks and I'm winning cards every weekend, then I'll start to splash the cash. But that's the plan right now. Is less cards, more focused, and that kind of rare pro space.
Less speculation, more quality, maybe.
Yeah.
It's something I'm very guilty of myself. The next most liked question was from Weston Davis. Did the new game modes change your buying strategy any? Again, we kind of touched on this, but
Yeah, not so much. I mean, I think I am curious about, could we see Challenger being split? Especially if they get another league or two, like an entire league, like if the Greek league or something comes in, or even just if they just round out and end up getting all of the clubs in all of Europe. That's a lot. I mean, we see this like now with Scottish Premiership. It's just getting very bloated. There's just a lot there. Do you maybe have a Challenger North and a Challenger South or something, or an East or a West or something? I'd be curious about that, but I wouldn't say a lot of I would say the areas I said this before is maybe special weekly, because you can win a rare. That's probably the only one that I feel like I've that, and even that's not that new. It's only about, I don't know, maybe it's 4 months or 6 months old or something.
Yeah, no, that's great. We'll move on to another question. JC67 Sorare. I'm going to just paraphrase something that he's mentioned here. It's kind of around the sale, the different sort of market mechanics, I suppose, on Sorare, the actual functionality. And something he's mentioned here is almost like an order book system, where maybe you could say you're happy to sell players for X amount, but people can also say I'm happy to buy players for X amount, and then you've almost got the spread there between. It's almost going to more of an order book system than necessarily the clunky market we have now. I think, like, to be honest, it really does need updated. It would increase their liquidity massively. I think if they, like, it would actually be huge for liquidity if you could list people for different sort of amounts of time. If you could, like, for auctions, if you could put in like a max bid feature, lots of different things that could be done that would increase the amount of money they make and the liquidity. So the only bottleneck to that, it can't be the decision or whether it's a good thing. It has to be around them actually actioning it and building out the back end, as a tech person would say. Is there anything on that jumps out at you? Anything you'd like to see? Anything that bugs you?
Well, I mean, I think what we're really talking about on a larger scale is just communication between managers. And so communication can come in many forms. It can be a little chat box, or it could be a sort of counter offer, or a ceiling or a floor, or that he's referring to, and things like that. And I mean, those are all forms of communication. And I think we've all had struggles. I mean, you see manager names, or people change their name to say, will accept, trades at 115% and things like that. It's like they're literally like gaming the the name in order to
Mm.
communicate. And I think that's like a big red flag for the SoRare developers. If you find people like trying desperately to like use whatever means they can to communicate out to the community what they're trying to buy or sell, that should be a flag that maybe we need to prioritize this in the backlog, to allow managers. I mean, you see that this podcast, the Discords, Twitter, things like that, it's so active. How SoRare is not sort of better facilitating this opportunity to communicate.
Yeah.
It's a bit beyond me.
It is. It's brutal. Like I go to the market, particularly, whenever, like with rares and limiteds and stuff, you'll normally find someone else. See, when you're going to buy super rares and uniques, there's probably only one or two on the market at
Right.
best. So contacting people is essential. And what you'll often get is people do list people for ridiculously unrealistic prices, particularly at like unique, because they're kind of like, well, maybe someone buys it. It's super rare. Well, like there's no one else out there. I'll just be the lowest on market and they'll contact me. And I kind of do it myself. Sometimes I'll put out a card and I'll be like, okay, this is like a 2 ETH card. I'll put it up for 3.5. And it's like someone can message me then. And it's almost like that anchoring effect. At least I've set the bar high and we can start. Whereas if I started at a fair price, they're going to want cheaper. Do you know what I mean? So that's why I do it. But I know I'm easy contactable. You'll find me on Twitter. You'll find me on Discord. You'll get me. But people who don't have those things attached and they still put out the unrealistic price, and they're hoping that people have ETH locked and loaded maybe to send the offers. But for me, if I'm buying off card, or if I want to discuss a more intricate deal with trades involved, then I might come and be like, look, well, I'll take him and him, but I want to give you this guy and some ETH. Like, I know you could send that offer, but what if you're buying with card, for example? So a lot of these people I can't communicate them. So for me, essentially, the card may as well not be in the market. So that affects liquidity. It affects their satisfaction. It affects my satisfaction. It affects many things. None least SoRare's numbers that they can stick to shareholders and put out there on Crypto Slam and whatever else for volume. So like, it makes sense for absolutely everyone for them to fix the market and all the little nuances and issues with it, because there's so many of them.
Right.
So yeah.
Next, it speaks to, sorry, just that, like the power of the community and why, you know, forums like this are so healthy and so necessary. I mean, maybe a good time to plug the meetup or the pub event or whatever as well, because it's like, again, if these things don't exist, there isn't an obvious place for people to connect on the platform.
Yeah. And what I want to put out there again, just around the event, I mention it most weeks now, so you're probably sick of me, but I'm sorry if you just outright can't go, but you're going to be kept up to date. I started a Discord for everyone going. So at the minute, we've just about 40 people in here now, confirmed us who've bought their tickets, put their manager names in, loads of people waiting to buy their tickets. Just get them bought, get in the Discord. People are planning of post, pre, during event plans, the weekend accommodation, trying to source tickets for games, all sorts of stuff. So everyone's getting very excited. So if you're buying a ticket, buy the ticket and reach out to me and I'll get you in the Discord. 5th of August in London, people flying in from all over the world. We have a Canadian, 3 Americans, someone from the Philippines, and multiple people from Europe, and loads of people from the Ireland and UK. So yes, and I'm also waiting to hear back what SoRare are going to do to help in terms of whether or not, well, they are going to, but see just how much they're going to lean in and what they're going to give us to give away. So that'll be fun. Thanks for bringing it up. So next question is a hot take in a question, which I like, Brandon, because I kind of put out saying, like, every week I put it out, like, hit us with your topics, your questions, and hot takes of the week. What a hot take for us European folk is, Americans like to use this term. It's kind of just like a statement of something you believe in. My hot take might be that coleslaw and lasagna is banging. Yours might be that it's shit. It's just a statement that it's your kind of like take on a situation. So Brandon says, how do we convince stubborn SoRare managers that coming up for a solution to DMPs will improve everyone's experience, not just the so-called whales, and would be a good thing overall for the SoRare platform? He says the best option he's aware of is to do what American Fantasy does. Rolling lockouts as the games start. Maybe we have to keep the submitting team's deadline for SoRare for technical reasons, but the idea is you can swap players in and out of lineup so long as their game hasn't started. It still rewards players for paying attention, being involved, gets them on the platform more often, and doesn't penalize them for initially trying to start someone that was expected to play. What is your take on DMP substitutes, that whole thing? I haven't spoken about that in a while.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a technical build needed for that, and at first I wanted to say, okay, if we're on a blockchain based platform, that might be much more complicated and much more costly for them than we than we might know. But at the same time, other fantasy sports do it all the time, FPL or fantasy football. So to his point, Brandon's point, like it should in theory be doable. I think, I mean, that could be a way, certainly the kickoff time and things like that. That would, I mean, it might even also for them, it would add more people coming to the site more regularly. So, I mean, to your point, you said you set your lineup once a week and you're hardly on the site right now. And, but maybe if you were actually checking starting lineups and things like that, and you could make a switch on the hour you'd be in more often. So I quite like that. The other one that kind of exists in this environment already is it Sorare Mega? No, no, I think it's the Sorare Data cups or leagues that they do, where you actually have a few sort of bench spots that you get to put in, and so that could be a thing where you just get to pick one, even just one bench spot or something. I don't know, something like
But
that
that
could
benefits the whales because they've got bigger
right.
galleries. That's
Yeah.
the argument that you'll come into there.
Well, I think anything benefits the whales. I think this is something that we have to
Yeah.
understand from like just macroeconomic principles. Like a good example for me is this special Freakly or whatever, where basically you can put in like 2 or 3 commons and stuff like that, and everyone's touting how it's going to help the the small guys and things like that. But like, if you're a whale and you only, like, you could easily clear house in that tournament if you really wanted to. At least the academy is in a scenario where if you play, you can only play that if you're not playing any other leagues. So that one I think makes sense. But part of why I didn't really get into the Freakly is because I was like, well, somebody's going to have Carlos Gil and Cecilia or something, and then and plus they're going to have their those of us that played for a while, we have pretty amazing common cards as well. So I was like, on the flip side, it also makes it like very, very easy to win as a bigger gallery.
I suppose there's less variation, isn't there? Like, so like, whenever people have to pick 5 players, there's more of a chance that one of them DMPs or has a shit score.
Yeah.
But whenever there's 3 and you just pick Vanek and Moriaka and Cruz or something, you're getting X amount of points guaranteed. Like, there's no variation there.
Like, take that to its like furthest extension. What if there was a tournament that you simply put 1 card up? Well, then obviously the people with Mbappe or whoever would win those, right? So you actually need like greater distribution. You need like a 10 aside or something like that and I guess I realize that creates a barrier of entry because then someone has to go buy 10 cards, but like, you need more variability if you want to sort of hurt the whales, so to speak.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. My take on the DMP thing, it's one of those where like, if they do it, whatever. If they don't, whatever. I'm kind of chilled with this. I feel like you're gonna piss someone off no matter what you do. What is ultimately the best thing for the platform? I mean, taking DMPs out of it's great, but I'll be honest with you, and I get DMPs all the time, as we all do. I still think it's kind of some buzz then whenever you don't get a DMP and you think you're in the running, or like, do you know, like DMPs, while they're sickening, they add to the buzz whenever you don't get one, if you know what I mean. Whenever you get a lineup, there's 5 guys, okay, they're all starting, they're all playing, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
There's some buzz to that too. And I mean, the roll and lock thing, I get it might be more optimal, but the argument there is always, what if I actually do just want to sign in, set my lineups for a Friday, and I'm good to go? I don't want to be on a Saturday out with my family and having to go in to tinker and check lineups throughout the day, throughout the 24-hour clock at certain times in the year. I don't want to have to set my alarm to wake up and check who starts in Asia or America. So I actually think, because of the global nature of the game and because of the different kickoff times, it's actually incredibly antisocial and would put me off massively, because I want to set and forget and enjoy my weekend. I don't want to have to keep treat it like a job and check in every couple of hours. So I've actually just come up with my answer here now. Rolling locks can fuck off. I'd hate that. I'd actually hate that in practice. I think it's shit. So, I mean, that's all very well, one-off DFS games or whatever, where you have to do it here and there. But with a SuperRare gallery with players from all across the globe, you'd be a full-time job around the clock all week, all year. That's fucking madness.
Yeah.
Um,
And if anything,
so
maybe it would limit the leagues people play in because they're like, I can only focus on these
yeah,
three.
I don't have the time to wake up or be
Yeah,
awake for MLS, so I'm not doing it.
right.
So yeah, it would limit me massively in terms of what I'd play. Maybe substitutes I could get behind the idea of. I could get the idea of like trialing something like where you have a substitute common that shoots a percentage of whatever, so it maybe doesn't kill the lineup getting a DMP, it just hamstrings it. Um, or like, and then the reason I say common is so that everyone could kind of have the subs. But then like, or even just having a sub, I'm not entirely against it. Does it benefit the wheels? It does, but like, it doesn't mean you need 6 players instead of 5. Maybe if it was an optional sub, it's kind of advantage. But if you just buy another card, it incentivizes people to buy more cards. It takes away the chance of a DMP. The problem is maybe you need to have it where your sub can't be the same as your extra, because then your
Mhm.
extra could be a forward, and then you can also pick a sub forward, and all of a sudden you have 3 forwards. Maybe the sub has to be a different class than your extra. But then if your extra sub, I don't know the intricacies of it all, but like I think like yeah, there is something that could be done. No one wants DMPs, but at the same time, no one wants a full time job with this either. So
Right.
it's a really tough one for them. So I think for them, it's easier to say nothing than to start trying to change things. And that's
Mhm.
obviously what they're doing.
Yeah, I have a long time group of friends, and we do our like annual NFL fantasy league. And a friend of mine said it. We were thinking about doing this sort of keepers league where you get to keep X amount of players each year and all this. And one of the guys said really well. He's like, I just want to go into every August that I have a 1 in 12 chance of winning amongst you guys, and it's fun, and it's fun for 4 months, and whoever
Mm,
wins takes the pot and whatever. I don't want whoever is the most like strategic and plans multi years out and has like, you know,
mm,
like that's when it just becomes now, like to your point, whoever invests the most time and is the most, you know, degenerative toward it. um
mm.
and it really like dawned on me that, right, this is, I know this is a different thing than So Rare, but like that league is just a bunch of mates getting together once a year to have a good time. And anything that takes away that antisocial, like you said, that antisocial aspect of it is something we should look at for So Rare as well.
Mm. Yeah, it needs considered. Definitely needs
Mhm.
considered. Um, and I mean, I do think like time should be rewarded. You know, it is play to earn or play and earn or whatever they call it. Like I get that the time should be rewarded, and you know, if you want to go and put 20 hours in a day, and I want to put in 3 minutes, then yes, okay, you should be rewarded more than me. But like, it's within reason and what is reasonable. I don't think it's reasonable for the game to expect to have any
Mhm.
sort of success that you have to be checking every lineup within an hour before the fixture, every lineup,
Well,
every team.
so
That's not
here's what
scalable. That won't make people grow
here's
because
one
there's
for
a
you.
limit.
I'm kind of curious about, because I've heard, sometimes I hear a lot of complaints, you know, on Discord and whatnot around some of the prizes, and you know, I finished here and look at who I got and things like that. And some of them are definitely broken. You know, a player that whose value has dropped recently because of an injury or something like that. But do you feel that if if you finish first in a game week, you should get the best player, and if you finish second, they should get the second best player and third and so on? Or should there, like within that star or tier one or whatever, there should be some randomized aspect to it?
I have talked about this before, and I think it's one of those that whichever one you pick, it doesn't matter because we're all playing by the same rules. The sickener comes the week that it's changed. Do you know what I mean? Like, I like the idea that the best person gets the best reward. But I also like the idea that if 10 people are getting star rewards and it is 100% random number generation, completely random, that number 10 can get an Mbappe, that adds to the thrill of 10 people. Then all of a sudden, you're playing for top 10. You're not playing for first, apart from the ETH. But like being fourth is no different than being 10th. And I mean, I don't know. Some people hate it. I mean, if you beat thousands of people, should you get the best prize? Yeah, I get that. 100% you should. 99% you should. But 1% of me also thinks like, okay, well, what if you're playing for tiered rewards and then it's randomized? Actually, I don't know. I'd love to hear people's thoughts on this because when I think
Mhm.
about it in terms of content, is what I'm thinking about because I'm biased. I'm thinking like having the chance to hit like the best tier one or the best tier two, that is way better because when you're opening it, you really don't know what you're going to get. whenever I open a star and I'm not podium, I know I'm not getting Mbappe or Haaland.
Right.
So like I remember when I had my first podium, I think I came second. I remember Mike Magnan kept a clean sheet for Lille at the time, and I knew for a day I couldn't sleep. I was so excited. I was so excited because I was like, I could win Mbappe, and this was in the boom. This was March 21 when you signed up. Actually, it was probably that week, and I was like, I could win a 50k card tomorrow. I could win 50 grand tomorrow because I hadn't really been on long enough to understand that I was never winning that card. The first person might have won it. I was never winning it. But the thrill that gave me, and imagine you could give that thrill to 10 people, 20 people, 40 people, 80 people every single game week, however many people win. You know what I mean? Or even like scale it down. Someone wins their first ever card and it's a tier 2 and they just scrape the tier 2. Let them dream they're going to get the best one. I actually think I like that, but I know that it would be one that would divide opinion. But it would take a lot of the headache out of it for Sorare in terms of trying to keep the players and the rewards sort of like descending value from the top. I mean, that's a hard job to do with how much changes in football. And again, I think the first week would be a tough one for people to stomach. Whoever wins gets a shit enough card, but equally they could get a good one. But I think long term, like that could be fun. But I don't know. What you asked me? What do you think?
I feel the same way. I think that randomness adds to the intrigue. I think it helps to put a bit of a drag on the whales that would expect to finish to podium each time and thus get those top cards. I would even take it a bit further. Maybe I'll get blasted for this, but like if you fall into the tier 3 category, there's one random tier 1, or maybe they do it as a marketing tool. So it's like we just signed up. I won't use Mbappe because I mean obviously he did just become ambassador, but if there was kind of a sort of a tier 1-ish ambassador or something like that for the month of July, there's going to be one random like limited of his card dropped into the tier 3 and tier 2 or something like that.
But then people will go, but I've put more money and I've picked the best cards. I put the best team in. Why are they getting rewarded for coming last?
Yeah,
Do you
but
know?
that's like,
I get both sides, but I think the
yeah.
jackpot side and the like incentivizing people, like it's the thrill, it's the unknown, as you say. And did they not have a thing in the communication ages ago where it was like 100 people who finish outside the rewards but score more than 200 points to be given a random card? Do you remember that?
Yeah, that's right.
Did that ever actually happen? I don't know.
I think I got someone. Yeah.
Oh yeah, maybe they're doing that.
Reina, I got back like the keeper in La Liga.
Because I remember that they brought that in whenever they announced something around the thresholds. This was a long time ago now, probably like a year ago, but I think there's definitely scope for that sort of stuff. I think it's interesting. And that is actually a really interesting one. I'd be really I've said interested about 7 times. I would love to know people's thoughts on that because I honestly don't know the correct answer. This could be one of those things where 90% of people are like, these are full of shit, or it could be 50-50, or people could be in favor. I actually don't know. I don't know the answer. But look, we've talked about a lot today. We're going to wrap it up with a 137 game, and I'm absolutely devastated. Julius last week, he had 60 out of Gill and 76 out of Mukhtar. He had 136 points. So I have to give 49 quid to charity this week. That brings the total up to €209. I said every week, we're getting towards donation time. I'm going to let it build and just do it at some stage. And you'll see it. Don't worry, I'm going to do it. But 209 quid I'm sat at. Are you going to break my heart even more or give me a break? Who are you picking?
Well, I feel like I have to go with the local boys here with the Whitecaps. Typically fairly low scoring fellas, so I think I'm going to have to grab 3 of them to get to 137. I'll go with my boy Ryan Raposo. He might get 30 or 40. Let's go with Cody Cropper, the keeper. Let's give him around a 50-ish, 55. And then let's get, so I only need a bit of so maybe to St. Ricketts. So he sometimes comes off the bench, literally gets 20 or 25 or something like that. He's not too.
St. Ricketts.
Tosaint is
St. Ricketts. Tosaint
yeah.
Ricketts. Okay.
These
interesting strategy. Let's see if it pays off. Yeah, it's a bit different, but I like that. If you hit it, it'll be like 10 times more impressive. But
Yeah,
Ryan, it's been an absolute pleasure. People can find you SoRare Strategy on YouTube, and it's at SoRare Strategy on Twitter. Am I right?
that's
I'll
right.
have you tagged everywhere. So yeah, go and find him and give him a follow and subscribe and all that stuff. Anything else, or have I pretty much nailed it?
No, that's great. Absolutely. Love the conversation with people. So please reach out. It's been my favorite hobby over the last 15 months. So
Amazing. Well, look, maybe I'll make a meetup one day when we're over your way.
I looked. The flights are about $1,700 to get out to
Oh
London for that
God!
weekend, so it's a bit
But you're
tight.
full of money now. You've loads of money now.
I know.
Just give up like 2 of those ETH. Who cares?
Yeah, that's right.
For the community, man. The connections are worth way more than the money anyway.
Fair
Look, it's
point.
been a pleasure, and I'll chat to you again. All the best.
Take care.
That's it for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe to the channel to catch it every single week. We go every Friday. Like the video and comment below and let us know what you think about the DMP/substitute debate that we had at the end of the show. See you next week. Bye bye.